Welcome back. On today's show, I'm going to be talking about something really real. This idea that as cabin crew, we need to be perfect all the time. We have to have perfect makeup, perfect smile, perfect mood, even when we're exhausted, stressed, or struggling. Why we need to stop pretending we have it all together. So, to me, this is something that every day, us crew, as crew, we have a lot of pressure on us from the moment we walk into the airport. The uniform expectations, our grooming standards from the beginning have to be perfect. That means as soon as you get out of your car, you've parked your car, you're on that bus, you're on show in front of everybody, other crew members, other airlines, as we share the bus with other airlines as well, and the general public. We're walking through the airport, everyone's looking at you. From the moment you walk through those doors, you are the center of attention. People are checking in their bags and hustle bustle going on with families, but we're walking through because we need to get to that crew room to sign on and meet our crew. So you are the center of attention at this time. So your grooming standards, we have to be perfect. We have to have that smile. We can't come across that we are moody in any way, because who wants to see a moody stewardess? I mean, let's face it. If you see somebody that's grumpy, you're going to think, wow, I'm going to have a great time. A lot of the time when passengers are coming in, you know what it's like yourself when you're going on holidays. Everything's super stressful, especially if you've got young children as well. Or even if you don't, it's just really stressful. You're trying to pack all your stuff, trying to get out the house, get on the road, you've got the traffic to deal with, you're stressed because you're running late. Then you get to the airport and you've got to find that parking spot, which is even more stressful. So you're already wound up before you've even got into the airport. And then it doesn't stop there. As a passenger, you then have to check in your bag's overweight, you have to pay more money. So you're already getting grumpy at this stage. For us crew, obviously we need to ensure that we are showing up to be our best on that day, the best version of us. We're walking through the airport, you're seeing us walking through. You know, if we're not on our best performance that day, our body language shows it all. It's just going to make people more angry, really. And so from both sides, you know, things are starting to happen, starting to boil. Well, for us crew, we arrive at the airport, we get into the crew room and we sign on. So we're signing on to our duty for the day, and we then all receive our briefing report. So a briefing report, if you don't know, for those listening that are not in the airline industry, is a report, and it shows us who we're flying with on that day, and that includes flight crew, where we're flying to, what aircraft that we're on, what flight number we have, and all that information is on this sheet of paper. And once we're into the crew room, we meet our crew. We then go into the crew room with our cabin manager, myself, and my 3 other crew, and we discuss the day ahead. So we're talking about who's on our flight that day, how many passengers that we have, how many children are flying that day, and how many small infants. We also have what we call SSRs, which are wheelchair guests. So we all sorts. We know exactly who is on each flight, and we discuss the day, how the day is going to be. So from my job as a cabin manager, it is to set the day, set the tone for the day for my crew. So I need to be my best. I need to be the best version of myself at this point to be able to lead my crew. And whatever mood I'm in that day is the mood of my crew. So if I've had a bad morning, I need to make sure that I leave that bad morning at the door, and I don't take that into the crew room with me, because I need to inspire my crew and give them the tools and the support for the day, because we may have an 11, 12-hour day ahead of us and full flights, no chance in getting a break. So normally with a job that you go to, you'll get a 10-minute break in the morning and a 30-minute, maybe some people get an hour. They're very lucky, but we really don't get breaks. If we get chance, we try to get a 20-minute uninterrupted break, which, as you can imagine, being on an aircraft, being uninterrupted for 20 minutes is quite a challenge in itself. So 9 times out of 10, that doesn't happen unless we're on a longer flight. So if you ever see crew sitting in a seat at the back eating, that's because that's our small little bit of time that we get to have some lunch and just zone out for 20 minutes. When I say zone out, I don't mean sleeping or things like that. It's more of the fact that you've just got 20 minutes of downtime. But like I said, that doesn't happen often because the flights are full and we don't have that extra seat. So if you are one of those people traveling and you're on the flight and you see the back row is completely free, please don't jump in it, because that row is left for a reason, for our crew rest or for any medicals that may occur on the flight. So next time you're traveling and you see that last row empty, don't think, oh, great, that's my cue to jump in. Always ask the crew, because we are more than happy to assist if we're all okay with that. So for us crew, we're always having to smile and have really great enthusiasm in front of the guests. It's really challenging sometimes because passengers, their unrealistic expectations of us is that we are there to give them absolutely everything. As it is, we are already challenged with the amount of passengers that we have on an aircraft, and ensuring that everyone's safe and secure and they're following rules, because it's really important that following rules for your own safety and for us as crew makes our job easier in a respect of, we don't have to come up to you and say, please, can you do this, when you know the procedure, especially with bags. Passengers jump on board and I don't know what it is. And I get it, because, we don't want our belongings to be somewhere else other than near us or above us somewhere. But sometimes we get so full and the bags get so compact on there that we literally don't have anywhere to put any bags. Sometimes we do have to adjust, which means crew then have to start moving bags around. And when passengers don't follow the weight restrictions, as you can imagine, that's quite heavy for us to be moving bags around. So next time you jump on board and you get a cabin crew that say to you, unfortunately, I cannot help you with your bag, that is because we can't. We can't literally physically pick this bag up, because if you've overloaded it and we're picking this up, we then hurt ourselves and we're off work. So that's why we don't do it because we are being horrible. We do it because we don't want to injure ourselves. And if you've packed your bag too heavy, then that's on you to hurt yourself for that reason. So that's why we have standard bag procedures in place. So for us as crew, already our grooming standards, when we're in, I'm going back to the beginning when I was talking about once we sign on and we go into our briefing, we all get checked. We get grooming checked, and that is a standard procedure with the cabin managers. They're checking to make sure that we look good, and we're following all of the guidelines that are set by the company. And so once we're all done and we're up and off we go, our job is very challenging. As you can imagine, as a passenger, if you've come in, you've had this big, stressful time getting into the airport with the traffic, the parking, the baggage issues and rushing around. You've got screaming kids with you, or something hasn't gone right with your day. You're already feeling the pinch and you're probably not in the best frame of mind. So unfortunately, things happen where flights get cancelled, your seat gets moved because of weight and balance of an aircraft. All of these little things can happen during your whole journey, which are out of our control. And that's because the logistics side of things are out of our control. We're just on there to make sure that you get from A to B safely. So once passengers jumped on board and they're feeling this way, sometimes they can take this out on us. So being judged before you've even opened your mouth happens quite often with cabin crew. Because they've had a bad experience, maybe at the gate with the staff, they then come on board and give us some really unpleasant feedback and can be quite rude at times. So we're standing there, we're trying to do our job as it is. Like I say, all of this has happened beforehand. We want you to have the best experience with us. So that's all we're thinking of. We don't know what's gone on in the airport before you've even got to the aircraft. And then you walk on and you're feeling really upset about something that's gone on. So the first thing you're going to do is take it out on us crew. So for us, we're standing there. You're already being heated, grumpy, moody, maybe shouting at us, and we have no idea what's going on. All we think is, okay, well, calm down. As crew, we need to de-escalate situations. So that's where we're trained to a certain extent of dealing with situations where we could try and de-escalate by making you feel better because you've had a really bad experience before you've got on that aircraft. And we want to make sure that when you get on our aircraft, because I know as a cabin manager, I want my passengers and my crew to have the best possible flight. And I say to my crew, every single flight that we do is could be somebody's very first flight. So we may have done 3 sectors. And when I say 3 sectors, for those that don't fly, is sectors per flight. So we could be going from one place, Melbourne to Sydney. Then we're there, everyone gets off. We clean the aircraft as crew, just letting you know. So once you've got off that aircraft, we then go through and we have to go through every single seat pocket to take out the rubbish that people leave behind. Then we have to go through with the vacuum cleaner and vacuum every aisle. And then we have to get refreshed. So we have to do this turnaround as quickly as we can to then be able to, so you then don't get delayed on your next flight for you to then jump on. And then we do it all again. Then we might fly from, say, Sydney to Brisbane, or then when you get to Brisbane, you have to do the same thing. Everyone gets off. We have to clean. We have to vacuum. We might get re-catered. We have to wait for the caterers. We have to go through that. Then we get everybody back on. So that's 2 sectors done. I've got 4 to do. I've got a 12-hour day. So at this point, we're getting pretty tired. Everyone that's listening as crew know where I'm going with this and knowing at this point exactly how you're feeling. You're tired. You haven't even had your break yet. You haven't had any time to even really eat because they've been really quick flights. So you're up in the air. We're serving guests. So not only do we do this, we come across issues where we might not have enough food that's been catered for us from catering. Again, that's not our problem. That's the backside of the company. And we may not have enough sandwiches and wraps going over lunchtime. We may have only been given a handful and they've been sold. And then we have nothing. So then I can understand, again, from a passenger's perspective, that they're hungry. They just want food. This is a great experience for them. But we don't have that. So we can only offer you what we have. And again, we do come across passengers that can get really upset with us and take it out on us and start shouting at us, which again itself is quite challenging when you haven't had this break. We've been on the go since 5 a.m. in the morning, sign on, and we're now 11, 12 o'clock. We haven't even had time to have a break, and we're only 2 flights down and we've got another 2 to go. And then we're dealing with passengers that are kicking off because they're unhappy because there's no food. So once you've done that and you've gone from Brisbane, you may go back to Sydney. And again, same thing, F1 off, cleaning, turn around. So they're very quick flights, and we don't get to then have our 20 minutes break in this time, because when we're on ground, we have to quickly clean so we don't delay the aircraft, for us then to load everyone up and off we go again. So then we'll get back to Sydney. By this point, you're looking after late afternoon time, and we do the same, and then we do another flight back to Melbourne. So that's 4 flights we've done, 11, 12-hour day, no break. So some of the things that we're dealing with on board, our passengers are upset, which quite clearly they have every right to be. If they've paid for a seat and they're not in their seat, or there's no food for them to eat, they expect a really good service. So as crew, we need to make sure that we are giving the best possible service. So we always need to have that smile on our face and a great body language. We also need to make sure that our grooming standards are kept up all day. So if you are wearing the makeup and your lipstick, that means topping up your lipstick, making sure that you are still presentable on each flight. And sometimes people forget we're human. They actually forget that we're human beings that just are doing our job and just want to make sure that you are getting the best possible experience, including the service possible. What you don't know is what it feels like behind the scenes to be cabin crew. So you think it's a glamorous job. And most of the time, look, I absolutely love my job, and I love the positive side of things is I get to travel and stay in different states, which is amazing. I get to visit different places, and we do go international as well, which we're very lucky we do get to experience. But again, it's only minimum rest. We don't get 24-hour layovers anywhere. It's more like 10 to 12 hours and 15 at a push, maybe. So you really don't have much time to relax and do anything. You may just get to the hotel, go out for a walk, and making sure all the time that you're keeping yourself fed and watered and staying healthy at the same time, because you're exhausted, you're fatigued. And when you're tired, you just want to pick out on sweet treats and naughty treats. And that's not great, obviously, if you're going to be doing that. If you have a 4-day trip, for instance, you've got to, like I've said in my previous podcast, prep and organize yourself for those days ahead. But what does it really feel like to be cabin crew behind the scenes? So sometimes a situation I had one time when I recall I could see that this gentleman wasn't happy. He was in an emergency exit row, and I was up the front because I look after my business guests. And one of my crew members said to me, "There's a gentleman in the emergency exit row, and he wants to talk to you because he's not happy." And I said, "Okay, that's fine, not a problem. I'll finish what I'm doing and I'll have a chat with him." And you could see that his body language was not great. He was grumpy, and I could see as I was approaching him, that this needs to be approached with care. So I said to him, "Could we have a chat?" And I actually took him up to the front galley because, again, I don't want to be discussing anything in front of everyone else because it's not professional. I have to be aware of my surroundings, my crew, and other passengers. So I took him away from his seat and had a discussion. He was actually, when I say polite, like he was respectful at the beginning, but by the end, basically he wasn't happy because he was sitting in an emergency exit row, and the couple across from him had some children that were sitting, the couple were in the emergency exit row, but the children were sitting in the seat behind because that wasn't an emergency exit. But the children were 10, 12. They weren't babies, they weren't small. But his argument was, I don't think that they should be sitting there because if there was an evacuation, they would be more interested in saving their children than saving us. So I explained to him that actually they meet all requirements to sit in the emergency exit row. I cannot ask them to move because they meet all the requirements, because there's certain requirements that you have to be able to sit in those rows, because if anything was to happen and we do need to get off that aircraft quick, we rely on you guys who are sitting in the emergency exit rows to evacuate the middle of the aircraft. That's why it's so important. I think also people forget how important your job is when you're sitting in that emergency exit row. People take it for granted and got their headphones on. And that's why as crew, we stand there and we brief you when you're sitting in those seats. And that's important for you to listen, because you could fly every single week for the last 10 years. And you think, yeah. But something could have changed with that brief. That's vital for you to help us evacuate that aircraft. Anyway, going back to the story, he was really disgruntled that they were allowed to sit there. I explained to him, I understand his frustration at this point. Feedback would be great to, just always send feedback because, for the company, it's great to have feedback from passengers, because it's always good to get that feedback, whether it's positive or negative, because then we can work on it. But for an emergency exit row, it's actually CASA requirements. So that's across the board for all airlines. Where he disagreed with me that it was a CASA requirement and it wasn't just something that our company did. But he got to the point where he was really upset and he started shouting in my face. So his nose was virtually touching mine and shouting. So at this stage, as crew, we have to stay professional, and I have to allow this person to, not allow him, that's probably the wrong word, but I knew he was upset, he was angry, and I also knew that it was out of my hands. I couldn't, there's nothing I can do at this point for him other than just listen. That's all I could do, was just listen to him. Once he'd gone on and on at me for 20 minutes or so, he'd got it all out and he felt better and he walked away from there. He said, "Thank you for listening." He just needs to get it off his chest. But what I'm trying to say to you is, what it's really like being crew is really, really tough sometimes. I've been in the galley, go into the galley, and I've had tears in my eyes because of the way somebody's spoken to me. At this particular time, I just stood and I took what he was saying, and I stayed strong and I stayed professional. But behind the scenes, I was so upset. And I think I even shed a tear because he really upset me, because he was angry and he was taking his frustrations out on me. And I just had to stand there and deal with it. And especially when you're on a trip as well. So when you're on a trip and you've barely had any sleep, so your minimum rest, you're exhausted because you didn't sleep well, because you're in a hotel and it is noisy and you've barely got a good sleep. I don't know about anyone else that's crew, whether you find this, but when I'm away from home, I don't sleep that well. Certain hotels I'm okay, but some hotels are so noisy, you're not actually getting a proper true sleep that you would in your own bed. So if imagine you've been on a 3-4 day trip, and you're super tired, and then you're dealing with situations like this on board. Sometimes it's just a lot. And, behind the scenes, that is, so yeah, you've got that sleep and you've not had to sleep, and, you're not on your A game. You feel guilty because you're not yet got your A game, and your minimum sleep. You've got these people shouting at you, people that are disgruntled because they haven't had a great experience before they've got onto the flight. When they're on the flight, they haven't got anything to eat. Just so many different little things happening. Or, you're just physically exhausted, and then somebody has a medical on board where they get very unwell. You've got to be on your A game to be able to respond to them, because we're medically trained to be able to assist in a medical. Obviously, we're not paramedics, but we're definitely trained in CPR and your basic training to be able to help you out of anything, a medical episode on board. So we're also got that side of things to deal with too, as well as everything else that goes on day to day on a flight. And sometimes we're not perfect. I know from a passenger's point of view, they expect us to be perfect, and you can't be all the time. It's just really, really hard when you've had a really, really long day. So as crew, I'm talking to more crew-wise now, is giving yourself permission to be human is okay. I just think that sometimes on tough days, just, give yourself, it's okay. That's why we have each other to be able to talk through and like situations with each other and help each other out. That's why we're always such good teams on board, and so important for you to show up to work every day to be able to be the best version of you so you can work well within your team. Because if you're not, and from a crew perspective, if you're not showing up as your best on the day, then you're letting your team down and all the passengers as well, because you're not gelling well in the team. We always try to stay professional, always. And being professional doesn't mean that you're always perfect at things, which again is, sometimes we might forget to take the tea bag out of the teapot, like little things like that. But, that's okay. Staying professional on board for everybody is our main objective of the day, really. What do I do? So on my low days when I'm tired, and, on this particular day where I had this situation with the passenger, I reflect back and I don't take it personally anymore. I used to when I first started. Anyone that would shout at me or, verbally abuse me in any way, I would literally take it so personally. I'd go home, I'd be so upset, I'd let it play on my mind. Whereas now I don't. I have a different way of thinking. So when somebody's standing and shouting at me or really upset, I just think to myself, you've obviously got stuff going on right now in your life. It's not directly personally at me. And that's how I deal with it. I don't take it away. Like, all I can do as crew is to provide the best outcome, the best service, support my crew as well as I can, and do my job the best I can. Everything else is out of my control, and there's not really anything I can do to change this person's way of, Salka, there's nothing I can do. I could turn it around. I can turn this around and try to make them have a better experience. But some people are just set in their ways where they're just not having any of it. They're not interested in you making them feel better. They just want to air off and be grumpy for the whole duration, which, again, that's fine. I've tried. My crew's tried. So, it's, for those listening, so from both sides, and I know this is a bit of a mix match because I'm talking about passengers, but I'm also talking about crew. From my side of things, if you are listening and you are a passenger, you don't work for no airline, you're just a passenger. just think sometimes, I know you've had a bad day and some things, life can be quite stressful and we've all got different things going on in life. And as crew, we are human and we also have stuff going on in our life. However, we do put that to one side for you, for your flight. And respect is all we ask for. And sometimes we're really upset with situations that have happened before we've got on. And we do apologize for your experience. However, when you're on board with us, we do expect everyone to respect us as humans. And I say this because there's some people that I've come across that literally do not respect others. And it's really sad to see that humanity has headed this way. It's really, really sad because we are just doing our job as crew. And for the crew that are listening today, that you do an amazing job, set your boundaries early with your crew and, coming to work clear-minded and ready to go and work as a team. Keep checking in with each other and do what you do best because, like I say to my crew, in all of my briefings, you are amazing. And the job we do is probably one of the hardest jobs out there to do. Unless you actually do this job, and experience this job, you won't understand what we actually go through. And all we want to do is be the best versions of ourselves. And don't compare yourself to anyone else. You do you. Be you and trust your instincts, trust your crew and work together. And we show up and we give the best package and then we hope that our passengers jump on board and also are kind to us as well. Thank you for listening today. Really do appreciate, again, you jumping in, listening to me chatter on about different bits and pieces, It's really interesting, that we as humans, the way we think and the way we act, and the way we show up for ourselves every single day determines the rest of the day and how that's going to go. So in the mornings, just think about some things that you're grateful for in life and set yourself up before you walk out the door, whether you are passengers or whether you're crew, whoever you are out there, just be kind to each other, be respectful. And I think that we'll all have a happy time. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of Fit to Lead. I really do appreciate you being here and taking the time to listen. If you have enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, family, or anyone who might find it helpful. And don't forget, you can grab your free guide. The Busy Body Blueprint is packed with food ideas and practical tips to help you stay on top of your health, wellness, and mindset. To stay connected, follow me on Instagram at Fit to Lead Podcast or head over to oscarsnetwork.com for more. Thanks again for listening and remember, stay fit to lead.